Nigeria. She was the eldest of 5 children, the first daughter of her parents, and the bearer of a silent but heavy responsibility, one that had been passed down through the story of the struggle of a firstborn child, Adana. Adana was born into a family of 7 in a small town in eastern Nigeria. She was the eldest of 5 children, the first daughter of her parents, and the bearer of a silent but heavy responsibility, one that had been passed down through generations without question. From the moment she was old enough to understand, her life was not her own. It was dedicated to her siblings, her parents, and the unyielding traditions that bound her existence. Growing up, Adana never had the luxury of childhood innocence like her younger siblings. While other children played in the dusty streets, laughing without a care in the world, she was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup under her mother's watchful eye. While her brothers were excused from household chores, allowed to run free with their friends, she was up at dawn, sweeping the compound and fetching water from the community well. By the time she turned 10, she had learned how to cook, clean, and care for her younger siblings. At 12, she was a second mother to them, waking up in the middle of the night to soothe her baby brother when he cried, and ensuring her sister's school uniforms were neatly ironed. Her mother, overwhelmed with responsibilities, often turned to her saying, "You are my right hand, Adana. Without you, how would I manage?" Those words felt like praise and a prison sentence all at once. When Adana turned 16, her father lost his job. The once comfortable home became a place of whispers and worry. There was barely enough to eat, and school fees became a luxury they could not afford. Her brothers were allowed to continue their education without question. "They are men," her father would say. "They need their certificates to take care of us in the future." But for Adana, the future had already been written. "We need your help at home," her mother said one evening, her voice tight with unshed tears. "Your siblings need you." So, she dropped out of school and started selling akara by the roadside at dawn and roasting corn in the evening. The money she made paid for her brother's education. She watched them dress in neatly pressed uniforms while she sat by the roadside, her hands blackened with smoke and her feet aching from long hours of standing. Yet, no one thanked her. Years passed, and Adana's brothers graduated, one after the other. They wore their achievements like badges of honor, speaking of their dreams and ambitions, while she remained where she had always been, tied to the home, still a caretaker, still unseen. Then, love came knocking. Shinadu, a kind man who had noticed her struggles, asked for her hand in marriage. For the first time, Adana saw a glimpse of freedom, a life where she was not just a sister, a daughter, a second mother, but a woman, a person with her own dreams. Her father refused. "You are not married before your brothers have settled. Who will take care of your parents? Who will support your sisters? Marriage is not your priority right now." Her heart broke in ways words could not describe. As time passed, Adana learned to silence her own needs. She opened a small shop and used her earnings to ensure her younger sisters went to university. Her brothers got married and moved away, rarely sending support. Her parents grew older, and their reliance on her deepened. People in the community praised her, saying, "Adana, you are a strong woman." But inside, she felt hollow. One day, while preparing dinner, her youngest sister, Amaka, who was now in her final year at university, asked her, "Sister, don't you want a life of your own?" Adana forced a smile. "This is my life. But what about your dreams?" Adana had forgotten them. Had she ever had the luxury of dreaming? As the years passed, many suitors came for Adana's hand in marriage, but they never stayed for long. Some genuinely loved her, but were afraid of the burden that came with marrying her. Others had heard the stories how her family depended on her for survival, how she was more of a provider than a daughter. "If I marry her, will I be marrying her entire family too?" One man whispered to a friend after meeting her parents, who subtly hinted at the financial responsibilities they expected from him. Another suitor, a well-to-do businessman, had been serious about her. He adored her kindness and strength, but after one visit to her home, where her father casually mentioned that they would need him to help finish the house renovations and support her younger sister's education, he withdrew without explanation. It hurt. It hurt every single time a man she liked walked away, not because of her personality, but because of the baggage her family placed on her, she knew it wasn't their fault her parents had grown to depend on her. But she also knew that no man wanted to carry another family's load before even starting his own. Eventually, the proposals stopped coming. People assumed she had chosen to remain single, that she had given her life to caring for her family. No one knew how many lonely nights she spent, wondering if she would ever have a love story of her own. One evening, after a particularly hard day, Adana collapsed. Her body, weary from years of labor, could no longer bear the weight. When she woke up in the hospital, she saw her family around her worried, afraid. For the first time in her life, she let the tears fall. "I am tired," she whispered. "I have given everything, and I have nothing left." It was then that her family finally saw her not as a pillar, not as a provider, but as a woman who had sacrificed too much. After leaving the hospital, Adana hoped her family would change. She hoped they would let her breathe, but things only got worse. Her parents became more demanding. Her brothers sent their children to live with her, expecting her to raise them just as she had raised her younger siblings. "You are their aunt," they said. "It is your duty." Adana wanted to scream. When would this duty end? Would she carry this burden until she grew old? Would she ever be free? Her mother fell ill, and the responsibility of paying hospital bills fell on her. Her brothers refused to contribute. "You are the firstborn daughter. You should take care of her," they said. Adana felt trapped. No one saw her pain. No one cared that she was exhausted. She cried herself to sleep every night, wondering if this was all life had to offer her. One day, Adana made a decision. She woke up before dawn, packed her few belongings, and left. She left built the siblings she had sacrificed for, and the parents who she moved to another town, rented a small apartment, and started afresh, taken her for granted. For the first time in her life, she was free. And though the guilt ate at her, though she missed her family, she knew she had made the right choice. Because Adana had finally chosen herself. She was no longer just the firstborn daughter. She was Adana, and that was enough.
Welcome back to my channel. This is a modern Nigerian horror story titled The Hands of a Healer. Dr. Olamide Adeyemi stood at the operating table, his gloved hands steady as he made the first incision. The bright surgical lights cast a sterile glow over the patient's unconscious body. The heart monitor beeped steadily, a rhythmic assurance of life, one that would soon be stolen. Outside, Lagos pulsed with its usual chaos. The hospital, St. Raphael's Medical Center, was one of the best in the city. Families placed their trust in its doctors, never questioning the outcomes. But behind the pristine walls, something sinister thrived. Dr. Olamide was more than a skilled surgeon. He was a businessman, and business was good. He worked efficiently, slicing through flesh with practiced ease. Beside him, his trusted assistant, Nurse Bisi, handed him the instruments without hesitation. She never used procedures. She had learned long ago that questions were dangerous. Tonight's patient was a 28-year-old. Could have been a routine gallbladder removal. But Dr. Allen, the man's kidneys were in perfect condition, prime for extraction. The client in Dubai had wired $50,000 up front. As he carefully removed the kidney, he felt nothing. No remorse. No guilt. Just the satisfaction of another successful transaction. When it was over, he stepped back and peeled off his gloves. The patient's vitals were crashing, but that was expected. He turned to Bisi. Time of death. She glanced at the clock. 2:43. 2:43 a.m. Dr. Olamide nodded, stripping off his surgical gown. He would leave the rest to the hospital's records department. Another unexpected complication. Another grieving family. Another payday. Dr. Olamide walked into his private office, locking the door behind him. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with the faint metallic smell of blood still lingering on his hands. Despite the thorough scrubbing, he sat at his desk, unlocking the drawer where he kept his burner phone, one used exclusively for his secret transactions. A single text awaited him. Package received. Payment processed. A satisfied smile played on his lips. He tapped on the banking app, watching as the dollar equivalent of 50,000 USD reflected in his offshore account. This was his transaction this month. His network was vast and efficient. The organs harvested from unsuspecting patients never remained in Nigeria for long. Through corrupt intermediaries, they were transported across borders, reaching wealthy clients in need of transplants. The system was foolproof. Or so he thought. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. He quickly locked the phone away before calling out, "Enter." Nurse BC stepped in, her expression neutral. "The family is asking to see you." Of course. The grieving family. The part he hated most, not because he felt guilty, but because it was tedious. He had perfected his script over the years. A deep sigh, a solemn shake gently on the shoulder. "They trust me." In the hospital's waiting room, her younger brother Chaik had been admitted for a simple appendectomy. The doctor had assured her it was routine. Now, she was being told he was gone. Dr. Alamide approached with calculated sorrow in his eyes. "Miss S. I'm so sorry. We did everything we could." Amaka stared at him, her mind struggling to process the words. Just 2 hours ago, Chaik had been stable, joking with her about what he would eat after surgery. Now, he was dead. She felt her breath hitched. What happened? Dr. Olamide sighed. There were complications. His heart stopped unexpectedly. We tried to revive him, but he shook his head as if deeply pained. Amaka's heart pounded. Something wasn't right. She had heard of post-surgical deaths before, but this felt too sudden, too convenient. "Can I see his body?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Olamide hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. Of course. That hesitation made her stomach twist with unease. Inside the morgue, the air was cold and sterile. Amaka stood over her brother's lifeless body, struggling to hold back tears. His chest had been stitched up, but something felt off. She wasn't a doctor, what she had expected for an appendectomy. Then why does his body look like this? The old man hesitated. Then, in a hushed voice, he muttered, "Some things in this hospital. They are not as they seem." Her blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Baba Tund glanced at the security camera in the corner and shook his head. "Go home, madame. Let the dead rest." But Amaka couldn't, because she now knew something was very, very wrong. Amaka couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone horribly wrong with Chaik's death. The morgue attendant's cryptic words echoed in her mind. There was more to this than a simple medical complication. She needed answers. Over the next few days, Amaka launched her own investigation. She went through Chaik's medical records, but they were suspiciously vague. The attending physician's notes were incomplete, and key information about his surgery seemed to be missing. It was as though someone had intentionally covered up the details. Determined to uncover the truth, Amaka reached out to a close friend, A.O. Benson, a journalist known for exposing corruption. A.O. had helped her with small matters in the past, but this was different. This wasn't a trivial story, it was about her brother's life. "I know a guy who works in the hospital's records department," A.O. said over the phone one evening. "He can help you get a clearer picture of Chaik's case. But you need to be careful, Amaka. There's something shady about that place." Amaka nodded, her resolve hardening. "I'll take whatever help I can get. I need to know what happened to Chaik." With A.O.'s help, Amaka met with the hospital's records officer, a man named Yemi. He was a mild-mannered clerk who, after some coaxing, revealed startling information. "Look, I'm not supposed to be saying this," Yemi whispered in the dimly lit back room of the hospital. "But there's a pattern. Dr. Olamide, He's been involved in strange surgeries. Patients come in for one thing, and then they're gone. Their families are told they died of complications, but the bodies are never properly examined. Their organs, kidneys, livers, hearts, are sold off to the highest bidder. Amaka felt a chill run through her body. Are you saying he's killing them? Yemi hesitated, then nodded. He's been doing it for years. No one's ever been able to prove it because he's too smart. The hospital's higher-ups protect him. They don't ask questions. But you're not the first person to question it. I've seen too many files disappear. Too many deaths go unexplained. Amaka's heart raced as she absorbed the enormity of the truth. Dr. Olamide was not just a surgeon, he was a killer. And he was hiding behind a mask of professionalism. She left the hospital that day with a sense of urgency. She had to act fast, but she knew she couldn't do it alone. She turned to Io once again, urging him to investigate further. They had to gather concrete evidence before Dr. Olamide could silence them both. They needed someone willing to put their life on who could go undercover and explain Jai, the young man in his early 20s, who had been struggling with financial difficulties, agreed to take the risk. He had nothing left to lose, and felt the weight of injustice pressing on him. His family was barely getting by, and he saw this as a way to fight back against the corruption that ran rampant in their society. Amaka arranged for Jide to be admitted to the hospital under a false pretext. He would pretend to need a minor surgery, one that was common enough to avoid suspicion. Dr. Olamide would undoubtedly take the bait, thinking he was dealing with another unknowing victim. The plan was risky, but it was the only way to gather the evidence they needed. Ao and Amaka arranged for hidden cameras to be placed in the operating room, cleverly disguised to capture every moment of Dr. Olamide's actions. They would be recording him live as he performed the procedure. The trap was set. The day of the surgery arrived. Jide was wheeled into the operating room with a fake illness, one that would require a simple removal of the gallbladder. Amaka watched from a hidden room down the hall, her breath tight in her chest. In the operating room, Dr. Olamide stood poised as ever. He was flanked by his assistant, Nurse Bisi, who seemed unfazed by the impending procedure. Amaka's heart pounded in her ears as the camera feed began to stream on her phone. Jide was unconscious, but the surgery wasn't what it seemed. Instead of working on the gallbladder, Dr. Olamide immediately began making an incision in a different area around Jide's kidneys. The room seemed eerily silent, except for the soft hum of machines. Amaka couldn't believe her eyes. There it was, what she had feared. Dr. Olamide was harvesting Jide's organ. Jide's heart rate dropped dangerously as the procedure continued, and Amaka's blood turned in horror as Dr. Olamide removed one kidney and handed it off to Nurse Bisi, who placed it into a cooler for transport. Amaka's phone shook in her hands. They had the evidence. But something went wrong. The sudden sound of Jide's faint cries echoed through the hidden speakers. He had woken up. His groggy, panicked movements made it clear that he was aware of the horrific reality unfolding. Dr. Olamide's calm demeanor cracked for the first time. His face twisted in irritation as he tried to push Jide back under anesthesia. "Get him back to sleep," he barked at Nurse Bisi. But Jide struggled, screaming. His body convulsed on the operating table, and the chaos that ensued sent the entire operating room in a moment of confusion. Nurse Bisi was thrown off balance. The hidden camera continued to capture it all: Jide's bloodied body, the frantic efforts to sedate him, the ruthless determination of Dr. Olamide to finish the job. The door burst open. A nurse, who had been alerted by the noises, rushed in, followed by security personnel. The operation was halted, and Dr. Olamide's carefully constructed world of lies began to unravel, sparking an outrage that rippled through Nigeria. Amaka and Io's investigation was now a full-blown scandal. The hidden camera footage, combined with outsiders, confirmed what everyone had feared. Dr. Olamide was not just a skilled surgeon. He was a murderer and an organ trafficker. Police raided the hospital, arresting Dr. Olamide and trafficker. Police raided the hospital, arresting Dr. Olamide as his mansion, once a symbol of his success, was ransacked, uncovering more damning evidence. Dr. Olamide's trial was swift. His demeanor, cold and emotionless, remained unchanged. He showed no remorse for his actions, viewing the entire ordeal as a business transaction. He had been untouchable for so long that he truly believed nothing could harm him. But the tide had turned. The families of the victims, once silenced by grief and fear, now stood united. They gave testimony, their voices full of sorrow and anger. Dr. Olamide's crimes could no longer be denied. He was sentenced to life in prison. Months after Dr. Olamide's conviction, Amaka visited the site of the former St. Raphael's Medical Center. It had been shut down, its reputation irreparably damaged. Families had filed lawsuits, demanding compensation for the lives lost. But the scars ran deeper than that. Dr. Olamide's betrayal was a reminder that power, unchecked, could lead to monstrous acts. Amaka, now an advocate for medical transparency and patient rights, continued to push for reforms. The fight wasn't over, but as she stood in front of the hospital's closed doors, she felt a sense of justice settle in her chest. The harvest of death had been stopped. Did you enjoy this story? Please drop your comments below. Don't you forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Until next time, bye. Welcome back to my channel. This is a Nigerian folktale of mystery, fate, and redemption. The sun hung low over the small town of Omu, its golden rays casting long shadows over the dusty roads. Women wrapped in colorful wrappers balanced baskets of goods on their heads, exchanging laughter and gossip. Children ran barefoot, their laughter ringing through the air, and men gathered under the ancient Iroko tree, discussing matters of the land. Amaka, a woman of remarkable beauty and virtue, moved through the town with grace. She had been married to Chidi for 6 years, and though their union was once filled with love, recent times had brought strain. Chidi, once a doting husband, had grown distant, weighed down by the pressures of life and the whispers of those who envied their once happy marriage. For months, their marital bed had remained cold. That was why the news of Amaka's pregnancy came as an earth-shattering shock. She stood in front of the herbalist's hut, clutching the wooden post for support. "What did you say, Mama Agbo?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. Mama Agbo, the town's revered healer, squinted at her, puzzled. "Amaka, you are with child. 3 moons along. Are you telling me you did not know?" The words sent a chill through Amaka's spine. It was impossible. But my husband and I have not lain together in months, she stammered, shaking her head as if that would erase the diagnosis. Mama Agbo's wrinkled face darkened. "Then we must seek answers, my child, for this is not ordinary." Amaka left the hut with trembling legs. As she walked through the village, she felt the weight of unseen eyes on her. Whispers followed her like an eerie shadow. The walls of her home, once a sanctuary, now seemed to close in on her. That evening, she waited for Chidi to return. When he did, his face was hardened with exhaustion. "Welcome, my husband," she greeted softly. Chidi barely spared her a glance. "What is it, Amaka?" "I am tired." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I am pregnant." The air grew thick, suffocating. Chidi's face twisted in disbelief. "Pregnant?" His voice was dangerously low. "And you expect me to believe it is mine?" Amaka gasped. "Chidi, I have never known another man." Chidi let out a bitter laugh. Do I look like a fool? We have not been together in months. Who is he? Tell me now before I drag you before the elders. Tears blurred Amaka's vision. I swear on my life I have been faithful. But Chidi's mind was set. The betrayal he felt was too deep, too consuming. He stormed out, leaving Amaka in a pool of tears. The next morning, the village square was packed. The elders, wise men of grey beards and stern expressions, sat in a semicircle, their staff of office resting beside them. The townspeople murmured, eager for scandal. Amaka stood alone in the centre, her heart pounding. Chidi sat across from her, rage simmering in his eyes. Amaka, daughter of Obiora, Elder Okik began, his voice deep and commanding. Your husband has brought forth a grievous matter. You carry a child, yet your husband claims he has not lain with you in many moons. How do you explain this? Amaka swallowed, her voice trembling. I do not know, great elders, but I swear on my ancestors, I have been faithful to my husband. Chidi scoffed. Lies. The elders exchanged glances. This was no ordinary case. They would need divine intervention. The gods shall decide, Elder Okik declared. You will swear before Amadioha, the god of justice. If you lie, he will strike you down. A collective gasp spread through the crowd. No one lied before Amadioha and lived. Amaka's knees weakened, but she stood firm. I will swear, she said, her voice unwavering. The shrine was prepared. The sacred white chalk was drawn, and the ritual began. Amaka stepped forward, her heart in her throat. I, Amaka, swear before Amadioha that I have known no man except my husband. If I lie, may the gods punish me. The wind howled. The trees swayed. The villagers held their breath. Nothing happened. Elder Okak's eyes widened. The gods have spoken. She speaks the truth. Murmurs erupted. Chidi staggered back, confusion gripping him. If Amaka was not lying, then how? The mystery deepened, and somewhere in the crowd, an old woman with piercing eyes smiled knowingly. What happens next? Who is the mysterious old woman? How did Amaka conceive? As the crowd dispersed, a strange hush fell over Amio. The people, though awed by Amadioha's judgment, remained uneasy. How could a woman conceive without lying with a man? Even the gods had spoken, yet the mystery deepened. That evening, Amaka sat alone in front of her hut, her mind heavy with thoughts. Chidi had refused to speak to her after the judgment, still struggling to accept the impossible truth. Then, a soft knock. Amaka hesitated before opening the door. Was the old woman from the crowd, the one with the piercing eyes. She was draped in a faded wrapper, her face lined with years of wisdom. Who are you, Mama? Amaka asked, wary yet curious. The woman stepped inside, closing the door behind her. My child, she said, her voice thick with mystery. I am Nika, the keeper of forgotten truths. Amaka's breath caught in her throat. You carry a sacred child, Amaka Nika continued, her eyes glimmering with knowledge. A child not conceived by man,